for being here tonight and listening to our two fresh squeezed artists. We're very excited for this evening to hear from Emily and Alexis. And first of all, my name is Amanda Cooper. I am the curator of exhibitions here for the Moraine Art Center, and there's my coworker Chris Andrews, who works with me in exhibitions in the back. And we love this exhibition. This is an amazing program. Fresh Squeeze first started in 2017, and in 2017 the Moraine turned 100 years old, so it was a huge deal for us. And we started Fresh Squeezed in order to do something intentionally that we've done organically for 100 years, which is exhibit artwork by emerging artists. We're a community art center. Emerging artists is who we work with most of the time. And we have a lot of artists that have shown their work here and then moved on and gone to museum exhibitions, et cetera, and so we wanted to come up with a program that was intentional. Like, these are emerging artists that we're going to have to come alongside and exhibit their work and take the not the mystery necessarily, but the stress out of their first solo exhibition. So that was the idea behind Fresh Squeezed. And it's a statewide exhibition. We've had artists from Pensacola down to Miami in this show, and every town in between, about 50 artists in 8 years. And yeah, a lot of them are college students, but not necessarily. We have artists that are young, artists that are old. You can be an emerging artist at any age. So this is our 8th year. We had 200 artists apply for this show from around the state, which was a record for us, and only 6 slots to fill. So Emily and Alexis are 2 artists that we selected to be in the show, and it's a no-brainer. You'll see why. And I'm excited to hear from both of them tonight. First we'll hear from Emily, then we'll hear from Alexis. And Emily is originally from Queens, New York. She received her BFA from the University of Central Florida in Orlando, and now she's a grad student at USF in Tampa. So we have her here for now while she's going to school. But I will let her talk about her work, and thank you for being here, Emily.
Hi, thank you guys for coming. I'm super grateful to be in this exhibition with all the other artists. And I guess I'll just talk about, I made new work for the show, so I'll start with how I got to the painting behind me. So in undergrad, I did this painting of my mother when she was pregnant with me. A lot of the process of the work back then was me finding family photos and then painting my relatives as a way to honor them. Also throwing them into the art canon because, historically painting as a medium has left out a lot of people in the conversation. So I became super focused on the figure, but I think in this painting it was still too academic or too referential to the original photograph, and I wanted to expand past photography as reference and try to create new narratives or fantasy around the figures that I paint. So I started looking at the Mexican Urbex movement of the 1920s, specifically Diego Rivera's creation mural. So during this time, Mexico needed a new identity to inspire and unify the literate masses. So for the first time here, in this large-scale mural, Diego Rivera inserted indigenous bodies as Adam and Eve. So while I was looking at that, I was also inspired by Sun Ra's Space into Place, which is an Afrofuturist film in which Sun Ra reimagines the future and origins of the human race, but specifically for Black people. So in this film, Sun Ra and his orchestra lead an intergalactic movement where they want to resettle the Black race on this utopian space colony. In the film, he visually expresses his rejection of Eurocentric philosophies through costuming. A lot of Egyptian and outer space inspired costumes, so like metallic capes, elaborate headdresses with coins and chains, esoteric symbols, and then also just the abundant use of color in the film. Through the 50s and the 70s, it wasn't that well received because of, like, it was intentional, low budget aesthetics mixed with over the top performances, so it got a lot of backlash from the jazz traditionalists. But I think looking back now, it's highly praised for being able to transport his audience to an alternate universe, which can also be like a means of escape, or a commentary or anecdote on reality. So overall, with those two references, I was just trying to examine how people create fantasy through either religion or science fiction, and how that serves to uplift the human figure to a more dignified or even magical position, and then what that could do to my paintings. So I was interested in the body as spectacle, and I wanted to do research on circuses in Mexico and the United States, and how these themes and aesthetics of spectacle and excess of brown bodies are closely tied to circus motifs. So during the 1840s, Mexican circus acts, which were seen as the poor man's theater, became popular along the border in Arizona. At that time, Arizona was still technically Mexican territory, but they had a lot of white settlers coming in, so that provided a new audience for them and gave the boom for those circus acts. And so 40 years later, by the 1880s, the U.S. advertisements started to illustrate a growing national racial narrative. You can see this through Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, which included an act of Mexican cowboys or vaqueros, which is another reason why I wanted to use the horse motif again in the sculpture as a reclamation of the horse, because I think the horse now is super tied to Americana aesthetics, even though there are widely indigenous cowboys way before what we think of as the American cowboy today. But anyways, those advertisements exoticized Mexican men and women, furthered racial stereotypes, and overall just like spread the message of brown bodies as disposable and means of mass entertainment. So I revisited that photo in that painting of my mother, reimagining the idea of a pregnant woman as spectacle and also its ties to the Virgin Mary image. I knew I wanted to continue to use the circus as a backdrop to talk about the themes of spectacle, excess, fantasy, body horror, and beauty, as well as reclamation of power. So in this painting, in Ritual, I thought about what would happen once the baby in there was born. I referenced Matisse's dance, which was technically a preliminary sketch for his other dance series, but this one specifically was super famous. I thought about the naked women here in my painting as performing a ritual on the child, and I wanted the ritual to be ambiguous, so maybe the women are breathing life into the baby, or maybe they're hurting the baby, but either way, the ritual performance is uncanny. I enjoyed in Matisse's painting the way the spatial ambiguity of the background creates that illusion of depth, while still the paint is super flat. So I wanted to create that same sense of movement in my painting while still keeping the way that I usually paint, which is pretty flat. So in the horse sculpture, I was looking at the famous painting Napoleon Crossing the Alps, but more so Kahindi Wiley's rendition in 2005, and the way that he uses these historical symbols of power, such as the figure on the Bavarian horse, in a way to venerate his own figures. So I was also connecting horses to carnival merry-go-round and like camp aesthetics. So for the back, I wanted it to still be active, but just create the solid silhouette of the figure on the Bavarian horse. So I did that Lisa Frank neon cheetah print pattern just to unify everything. And then lastly, for the box on the wall, I wanted to find a way to tie in my interest in fashion and character costuming. So I thought about what would happen if I was in the world of the painting interested in excess and adornment of the body. So with the horse figure and the one in the paintings, obviously the figures are naked, so I wasn't able to do that through clothes, but I did it at the adornment of their extremities, so like nails and toes, hair. Yeah, but when I use my own image, I'm able to play around with that with clothes or makeup or hair, posing. So I often look at other artists such as Miguel Drover, who use costuming and self-portraiture to tell a story. Miguel Drover is a Spanish fashion designer who was pretty big in the late 90s and early 2000s. He uses a lot of cultural dress mixed with street style and high fashion, often as a commentary about the elite versus the marginalized masses in New York City. So for the box, I was thinking about myself as those paper dolls that I used to play with, so like the outfits could be interchangeable, or like I would be like a puppet. Also referencing marionette boxes and their connection to the circus or performance. I was looking at vintage circus flyers, and these Bali girls, showgirls, so they were called Bali girls because they were technically ballerinas who were recruited to come perform for the circus. So I also thought that was a clever tie-in to the dancers from Matisse's painting. And in order to tie in physically the box to the rest of the pieces, I used the endless braid motif around the edge again, and then the cheetah print from the horse. And my body is like the opener for the baby on the tiger act, which also ties into the baby in the painting. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Testing, is that okay? Does that sound okay back there? Hello again. Um, we're excited to introduce Alexis Childress, our second Fresh Squeezed artist of the evening. And Alexis is originally from Illinois and then moved to Georgia, and then we got her here in Florida for a little while. She has a BFA from Georgia State University, and her work, when we saw it during the selection process, much like Emily's, just bowled us over. It was just fresh, no pun intended. It was just incredible work, and we were really excited to see it, and excited when she agreed to be in the show, and hear from her now.
Hello, everybody. I've been a little sick earlier this week, so bear with me. My voice is a little raspy and I'm a little nasally, so just don't judge me. So these pieces in the shows is kind of like my style that I like to work in. For me, I think it starts out with using a lot of bold colors, and then I sort of developed this language through research and things like that. So I'll kind of go back to the beginning. I started out in photography, just like straight taking photos, and I think I just felt this need to like express more and to create spaces and create my own narrative, and I felt like the images weren't really capturing what I wanted and what I envisioned in my mind. So I kind of started manipulating photos and messing around with them, and that was kind of getting me to where I wanted to go, but it wasn't quite what I was picturing still. So then when I kind of created, I actually think this piece was one of the first collage pieces that I created, and I started working with paint and kind of creating these emotions within the pieces, and so that was kind of where it all took off. So I kind of start my process with a lot of research. I like to delve into these ideas of how people interact with each other, how we have these learned perceptions of each other, because we're all sort of born with a blank slate, and we don't really figure this out until we get older, and how we see other people, how we see other colors and other races. It's all kind of a learned thing, and that was really interesting to me because I grew up in a small town that was very racially directed, and so for me it was important. I needed to understand why all this was happening, where it came from within our whole society. So I started doing research on that, and sort of the perspective and how we learn these things. One place that took me, which is where this piece came into play behind me, this wallpaper, is learning about technology and sort of these things that we use to spread information throughout our society. So Google and the internet was one of those things that I kind of found upon, and I was like, okay. And I realized that Google, and even though it's sort of a biased search engine, the reason that it's biased is because of us, and it's sort of this algorithm that takes in all this information that we give it, and then it kind of spits it back out to us. And so it was interesting to me when I would put in these certain phrases or searches, what would come up, and it was usually what like the norm, like society would kind of, you know, create as a stereotype for this or that. It wasn't really reality, it was just sort of what our society had fed into it and spit back out at us. So with this piece, I searched one term, sassy black women, and then I searched another term, sassy white women. And so the image that is on the back and repeated is sassy black woman, and then the one that's on the front side is sassy white woman. And it's kind of one, also like a celebration of female strength and that, but it's also a critique on how those terms can be labeled differently on different skin tones, and how, you know, if a black woman is really angry or sassy, it could be portrayed in a certain way, versus when it's on a white woman, it could be more seen as strong or fierce or independent. And so it's kind of just a play on that idea and sort of this idea, and that's what Google spit back out at me, like these top two things. One was sassy black woman, like this meme that went around of this lady like with her finger like this, and then the top image for sassy black woman was this white man with their middle finger up. So for me it was kind of interesting, and I usually always try to use like the top image that comes up, like I like when I'm scrolling with that, so I want to see exactly what it's going to tell me is the first thing. I've done a few other pieces like that. I also have done one that was called Black People Power Police, and that was kind of a collage that I did. And so I've kind of done pieces in that way. Another way that I've kind of paint. So I think maybe like this piece here is called Unity and Cycles of Unity. And these circles kind of represent one of these cycles that I think we as a race go through with kind of being united and finding these ways to build community while also having these other ways that push community apart and kind of push us all apart. And so we all kind of cycle back to that and personal cycling and wanting to fit in and be a part of that community, and then just, you know, wanting to just go on about and learn about Bible history and things like that, and sort of cycling through all of that. And then also the cycles of the power structures that surround all of us and tell us how to feel about each other and how we're supposed to think about each other and what they want us to feel about each other, and sort of going through all of that as well. So it's kind of this combination of using the shapes, and then I also use a lot of paint. I think in this piece, the paint smear represents confusion, frustration, emotion, and I do the paint strips, I do them all analog, so I do them all in real life, and then I photograph them digitally, and then put them into the image that way, and so I kind of just photographed in high detail, but they are all actual, like, real life paint smears and strips that I use and make. And then I also use images of my own body to, I think I use my own body because it's sort of a way of doing a self-portrait. For one, it's easy access. For two, I never have to worry about lining up with my own schedule. And it's, I don't know, it's cathartic. I think it's also a process for me to like explore my own body, accept myself for who I am, all of the curves and the shapes, my skin tone, all of those things. It's kind of a process going through that as well. So it's kind of back and forth. I've never really used anyone else in my images so far. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be forever, but for now, I just use myself, and I think that's one. It also keeps it very neutral. You know, it just keeps it where it's not focused on who's in the picture or what, you know, who the specific subject is. It kind of keeps it at a flat surface, and that's also why all of my figures you'll see are often in black and white, because I don't want too much focus to be on the skin tone, whether it's a light-skinned dark person or a dark-skinned black person, or you know, whatever what it is. I want it to kind of be more about the image and what it's about. Sometimes, like with that piece and then the piece in the back here, I can kind of play with like different skin tones on the same, but that is essentially still the same body that I can just kind of play with the tones on. So I think that's important for me to use myself and stick with that. And so, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. I think I like to use bright colors and things to draw people in, but my main focus with my work is I want to make a space for people to be able to talk about these things. In my town where I was growing up, I think a lot of the racial energy got its strength from no one talking about it, no one having conversations about what was happening, and you know, you would see these things happen, and no one to go to and be like, hey, why is this happening? And everyone knew, but no one talks about it. So I think for me, I just want to create a space where people can look at my images and take it at face value and see what they want to see, and then invite them. It be an image that invites them in and lets them ask questions. I've had so many people ask me things like, well, what's Afrofuturism? And like, what does this mean? And I love that my work makes them feel comfortable enough to do that, and it's not too aggressive, but it's inviting, and then it lets you have these layers where you can see it and you can appreciate the design and the color and the beauty, but then you can delve into the layers of it and understand which one it is. I do. I'm probably either wanting to voice something and not feeling heard, or feeling silenced and frustrated. Honestly, never got that question, but I think it's probably just wanting to say something that I can't say.
Was behind the decision to scale, like, also with the wallpaper, maybe that's something I want to keep.
Oh yeah. I love the wallpapers. That's like one of my favorite things. I have a few others that I'm working on right now, but they're very specific. So they're kind of weird because like it's all about what's not there, and you really have to find the right space. But I have another one. I have two more that I'm working on. So I really like wallpapers. I think for me, I like the scale of the love the wallpaper aspect because it's a very like repeated image that people kind of don't take, and then you have to delve into it and actually see the picture. So I think that's why. So I really like wallpapers. I'd love to do more full scale wallpapers.
Do you see yourself ever going into straightforward photography again, or do you think
I still take photos. I guess I just don't like do anything with them. Because it happens like, I don't know, maybe like once every like 2 months I'll like take some images that I love and then something. So I don't know, maybe one day I'll like compile all of those and just getting those and things like that. I don't know, we'll see if it's possible or not. Right.
and I also love both of you and Emily are using yourselves in your work. For me personally, I love self-portraiture. I can say that's necessarily why you both are in the show, but I just love to let you know. So I didn't know what you were talking about. So. What's next for you?
I'm actually in California at the end of the year. So getting out there. I'll be in Santa Barbara. So yeah, I'll be going to grad school out there